Good afternoon. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce this year's Richard L. Kohls Outstanding Undergraduate Teaching Award recipient, and therefore the Kohls Lecture, which is a very honorable thing in our college. And our colleague, Dr. Haley Oliver from Food Science, will be presenting this year's Kohls Lecture. We do thank the Kohl family for the opportunity that they'd endowed this award to recognize our winners or our distinguished outstanding teaching faculty every year in a number of different levels, and this is one of those levels. I'm going to introduce Haley is known to many of us, but I still don't want to lose sight of some of her achievements and how she was nominated. And of course, from the departmental side, they talked about the nominations and the worthiness of the candidate that was going for this at university-wide level, and how that was an important that it was important to recognize that here's yet one of the younger faculty in terms of in years in the process of doing this, and she was now being recognized in this prestigious award. I do like to read sometimes the student nomination quotes, because it goes along with what we heard earlier today in our workshop with Dr. Jeff Hattie about the role of a great teacher. And here's one of the student comments. Dr. Oliver is excellent. She's brilliant, energetic, and an all-around great instructor. She's incredibly helpful. What sets her apart from the other instructors is how personable she is. She gets to know her students while she's teaching them. Although her class is large, I feel like she goes out of her way to get to know us. And to put it in perspective, our colleague has received numerous awards to this date, and she hasn't lost sight of that. So, for example, in 2013, she was an Impact Fellow. In 2012, she was the Outstanding Academic Advisor in the Department of Food Science. In 2013, she won the Kohl Early Career Teaching Award in the College of Agriculture. In 2014, she represented this college and herself and the department in this university as a USDA Young or New Teacher Award recipient, which is wonderful, and we got to witness that day and be there with her. She's won the, and now she's a member of the Purdue Teaching Academy. She's a Teaching Academy Fellow. I'm not, the last thing I'll say is to the committee that went through all the nominations and selection. I know Dr. Fulton is here. Any of you others are here from that committee? And Dr. Buckmaster, I know Penny Kelly back there helps a lot. Thank you so much. I know it's very difficult to see everything that goes into all the time and effort to select these outstanding recipients, and we know that like this year, like any other year, it was very worthy of your time and effort, and we appreciate it very much. So without further ado, our colleague, Dr. Haley Oliver.
Thank you, Marcos. And this is I took the liberty of changing the topic of what I could do with this 45 minutes. I could talk at you about my philosophy, which would take about 3 minutes. It's not very deep, I guess, at the end of the day. Or I can talk to you about poop, right? So, I mean, that I can drone on for hours. So I was like, well, that will be a nice combination of how I teach about poop. Well, maybe we'll get in the 45-minute range. I did also add in there to cook your food, because that really kind of helps mitigate some of these problems that we all do have in the world, but we'll get to that here in a second. All right, so who's had diarrhea? Yeah, and again, if you need the slide, let me know. This is a complicated slide. Okay, sorry, again? Oh, you mean, yeah. And now if you didn't raise your hand, you're lying. And that's fine. We'll publicly shame you for the rest of the 40 minutes or so. How do we know well, you're lying. There's about 46 million cases of foodborne illness in the United States each year. So if we do some quick math on the, according to Google last night, 323 million population in the US, it's still about a 1 to 6 chance, or 1 in 6 people in the US get a disease each year. So again, the likelihood that this doesn't catch up with you at some point in your life, you are a unicorn. Do let us study you so we understand why you have somehow evaded this disease. You probably only eat Rice Krispies or something dry, and that's about the only way I can think of. So one thing, we have to set some ground rules here on the difference between food safety and food quality. It doesn't matter how many times I teach food microbiology. At the end of the class, this is the one thing I need them to understand, is that there is a difference between quality and safety. And even in the language of industry, these kind of get mashed around a little bit, but oh my gosh, we can have quality all day, but if it still kills us, it doesn't really matter. You can have this perfect looking cluster of grapes, but you can't see E. coli, and E. coli doesn't eat grapes, for the most part. So you can still end up with this raging foodborne illness, even though it looks like to be the highest quality food on the planet, the best thing you've ever seen. So our goal in food safety, which is what my group does, is to work to make foods from mainly retail environments safer, free of disease-causing agents, which could be chemical, physical, or biological hazards. And of course, we're microbiologists, so we focus on the biology part. So how much food do you throw away because it's bad? How much do you throw away?
It's
Public
close
shame.
to 30%.
It's huge, right? I think most of the U.S. consumer base is somewhere around the 30 to 40%. I have this fruit bowl on my counter. It's where fruit goes to die. I buy it and put it in there and just watch it. I don't know why I keep buying it. I mean, I just have not learned yet. Even the lemons go bad, which says I probably need to increase my gin consumption or something. But something. How do lemons go bad? But somehow, there must be some infection in that bowl. I need to, wash it or something. Take some of my own advice here. So we know that, most of us in this room have the luxury of being consumers that can throw stuff away. Whether it's careless attitude, probably here, and can afford to waste some of that food. But if we want to solve some of the bigger issue challenges that we're coming up against from a population standpoint, we're going to have to change some of our ways there. We can produce more, or we can start wasting less. But a part of that will still have a food safety interface. Now, anybody been to Westwood? Recognize this plate, right? Just in case, just want to set the stage for some of this food. Okay, so we have some shrimp, and we have some really strange corn salad. I love corn. I love corn in all foods. I don't know why, I just love corn. This corn salad was full-blown room temperature. All right, so that's kind of where we would put food in the danger zone. It's above 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's below 140 degrees Fahrenheit. It sits right there at room temperature. That's where all of our pathogens really love to grow. So I was like, well, that was a fun choice. I love corn. It's in a temperature danger zone. All right, well, we'll revisit this here in a little bit. So as I mentioned, when it comes to hazards in foods, things that most of them you can't see. You can't see chemical hazards. You can't see biological hazards. And maybe the ones you can see are physical hazards like bones, rocks, or metals. But at the end of the day, most of our challenges to food safety are invisible to us. What we know, so these estimates are for 2001. We only update them, it seems, about every 10 years, optimistically. So our latest estimates for foodborne disease in the US, from the 31 major known pathogens, 9.4 million episodes, really at the end of the day, only 1,300 deaths, which to me I think is really impressive and a statement about the food safety and our emphasis that we place in this country. Yet we have this inherent fear as a consumer about food safety, or we expect foods to be perfect. We expect every time I get out a bag of lettuce, I don't think I'm going to get sick, or I don't calculate the risk usually. You just eat your salad, right? Well, I don't like bagged lettuce. I don't like lettuce, but anyway, I like bacon. Different. So most of the disease in the US is actually caused by norovirus, and you don't hear a lot about it because when we hear about norovirus, it's usually a big event. Cruise ship disease, hopefully no one has been a part of that. I haven't been on a cruise ship, not because I don't want to, it's because Purdue doesn't let me have time to go on a cruise. No, I'm kidding. But one risk you would take if you went on that, if you look at historically, norovirus, hard to get rid of once you've had 700 people with vomiting and diarrhea on a ship. It's a hard cleanup effort at the end of the day. So the leading causes of disease, not surprising, I don't think you should be surprised by the word salmonella, nothing new. Toxoplasma gondii might be new to you, it's a parasite. It's actually one of the causes of crazy cat lady syndrome. There's an association with that. It's a socioeconomic disease. We don't hear a lot about it, but second leading cause of foodborne related disease deaths, and then Listeria monocytogenes, which is near and dear to my heart. Ever since I was an undergrad, I can't seem to outrun working with this beast, and I'm not sure I've made any progress, so I guess that's job security. If we take a look at some of the big numbers, are the organisms, the bacteria really, that cause the most disease, Campylobacter, Salmonella, those are usually attributed to poultry or associated with poultry. E. coli 0157, you've probably heard about that. That was one of the big aha moments for food safety in the history of the United States, all things considered, associated with ground beef. But if you look at the likelihood of death for those top three, it's extraordinarily low, right? A lot of cases, near 1 million each in the US for those top two, but the probability that you'll die is actually really low. So that's great news. But there's still a huge economic cost associated with those. Salmonella, not including prevention or cost to the food industry, but actual loss of life, loss of worker productivity, and healthcare costs on it is $3.8 billion. Oh, that's a significant burden to the economy. But if we look at Listeria, only 1,600 cases a year. And we certainly have probably that many car accidents, in the state of Indiana. Maybe hopefully not that have a mortality rate at that level. But 16% of listeriosis cases result in death. And that's what drives our concern and the costs associated with this organism up, and why I guess it warrants me still studying it. It still costs a huge amount to the food industry to facilitate those recalls. We have a lot of food loss because of US policy in this space. So in case, I love the CDC sometimes, in case you can't figure out what progress of numbers or arrows, there's an emoji. Just to drive it home, in case you couldn't figure out, up, down, no change language, there's just, flatline listeria right there in the middle. That's how I feel when I come to work every day, just like not making progress. No, not true. But have we made progress? What's frustrating probably about these numbers to some folks is, we dump tons of energy and effort into driving down foodborne disease in the US, and yet we still seem to have these on the progress report. Well, we're finding new vectors. We're finding new ways that foodborne pathogens find their way to humans, or new foods that are associated with those diseases. So the more we learn, the more challenges we find, and the more issues we have to chase. If you've been reading the news, one thing you haven't seen on this list yet is hepatitis A. And if you know anything about what's going on in California right now, this is a really, this is a world-class tragedy, I guess, in my opinion. What we have here, hepatitis A, it's a known foodborne pathogen transmitted through foods and water. But this particular outbreak is happening among the homeless population in Los Angeles County. And it comes back to the simple idea that if you don't have the ability to wash your hands, or a place to use the restroom, and a way to facilitate what is natural and a normal everyday process for us, it puts you at a different risk for these types of disease. And of course, it compounds with the likelihood of being immunocompromised and just general lack of access to health care. I think there's over 400 individuals that are associated with this outbreak at this time, and 17 people have died from a disease that usually doesn't have that high of rate mortality. So I do like the Los Angeles Times editorial topic. If this isn't it, essentially we give up. So I guess this is all I have to do from now on is just show this slide. Right? I don't have to give 45 minutes of effort here. So who's responsible for it? There's a number of federal agencies and state agencies that are involved in food safety, EPA. But really, when we think about food safety and where the challenges can be managed or introduced, it's really in the farm to fork continuum. Who has the least liability? The folks over there on the right, right? And you as a consumer are like, well, you're going to handle it for me. And then you go home and you slice your lettuce on your raw chicken cutting board. So it doesn't matter what industry or retail have done for you, you still make bad choices, and guess who you still blame? Maybe not this crowd. But if we look at some of the average consumers, you say, I still got sick even though I screwed up. The liability still seems to land with retail, manufacturing, and back toward primary production. So again, we're going to take a little trip through my phone. Right? My phone is great, full of terrible pictures. It's usually full of dogs, so my greyhounds, they're great. They're probably a source of foodborne illness. They're disgusting. They got a bath yesterday, so they like took them down a few logs of nastiness. But also some of my favorite foods like charcuterie boards and oysters, and so they're all here. So what's wrong with this picture? If you look closely, you might recognize some of the fonts. What's on the left? No, there isn't ice, but it is refrigerated. What's the difference between the left and the right? Raw versus cooked. Guess what's separating it? A marginal piece of plexiglass, and the ice is easing from, bidirectional. So this is local. So that's a local problem. Local challenges. All right, what about this beautiful salad? What's the highest risk product on this salad? This is a beautiful salad. This was really high quality, I can assure you. What's the highest risk, potentially, component of this salad? We've got anchovies, which probably make some people cringe. Olives might make some people cringe. What's the scary piece? It's the lettuce. Yeah, so the one thing, the eggs have been cooked, tomatoes are more acidic, could have an issue. Olives, canned, fermented, preserved fish. The one thing that doesn't go through a massive heat treatment or some type of event to reduce the pathogen load, the lettuce, which is the part that we think is the healthiest and highest quality. I would say the anchovies, but probably some people would default to the lettuce. The tomatoes, well, yeah, they're pretty good. I love this picture. This is from Afghanistan. And so one of the largest and most interesting foodborne disease outbreaks in the United States was attributed to the Peanut Butter Corporation of America in 2008. And what it did is it really began to set the stage. It was 1,500 products that were involved in that recall. It set the stage for bad behavior and how we deal with bad behavior in choices around food safety at manufacturing. There's always been consequences, but in this instance, they were testing away a positive. So if they found salmonella in product, they retested and didn't find it. Well, that's not a big surprise. Not every tiny unit of peanut butter is guaranteed to be contaminated. And so that's really a terrible way to do business. So what they do is they create great examples for me in class of what not to do and how to go to jail. But why I like this picture is we're in Afghanistan, and the rage, the debate between crunchy and creamy continues around the world. Go. All right, oysters. Man, I love oysters. And the USDA's, they were working on a risk assessment. Anybody hate this product? Anybody this freak them out? Yeah, that's smart of you, right? This is where the educated risk comes in. I know that this is going to treat me poorly. It has taken me down in Madrid, Spain. Oh, it was bad. It was bad, but they weren't even that good. But don't eat oysters where you're not next to the coast, if you don't have a good cold chain, for example. These are local. Never had a problem with the local ones. But the USDA risk assessment says if you eat an oyster, the likelihood that you will get vibriosis, so from Vibrio parahemolyticus, is about 100%. Again, educated risk. Will I be, shucking oysters when I'm 75? Probably not. I'll probably be taking a few, might be backing off my oyster consumption by then, or moving toward oysters Rockefeller, where at least I've cooked them. What about this tree? This is another local favorite. Anything wrong with this? Nah, it's perfect. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, this is the one that's perfect. No, we've got some options here. This is a heavily handled food. I don't know how long this was sitting around, right? I've watched somebody grab a scoop of frosting once upon a time and hand deliver it to my cinnamon roll. So I know there's maybe nothing wrong here, but there was maybe some opportunities for improvement on some other foods that I was observing that day. I am fun to take to lunch. I really am. I eat everything, so again, it's educated risk. Now, this is a piece of beauty, in my opinion. It's not so good for the vegetarians, I suppose. But this is a charcuterie board from Bell's, right? So excellent beer and excellent food. If I could pick out something on this plate that's the highest risk, well, there's all kinds of risks associated with each one of these pieces. Listeria is probably going to be over there on the left. It's not guaranteed to be there. We'll assume it's not. But if we're talking about risk and risk assessment, those darn meats, Listeria monocytogenes has been beating down the deli industry for quite some time. The vegetables are pickled, so they've been through some type of antimicrobial treatment. The thing on there that might be the question mark, the blanched almonds, or if you did something terrible like feed a small child the honey that's on I guess that would be the left of that plate. We know that honey can actually carry Clostridium botulinum spores. It's not going to be a problem for us, but when you don't have a developed microbiome, when you don't have a pH of your stomach that can manage or keep those spores, that's when we start to see some of the scariest foodborne diseases in small children. This is how your spring mix is grown, if you haven't seen it before. It's one of the most impressive things you can see in California or Arizona. So if you wonder how they get that blend of different lettuces into one bag, well, they grow it that way. It's one of the prettiest things you'll ever see. But you can see this is it's a raw agricultural commodity. It's grown, and they essentially mow it with what looks like a really fancy lawnmower, and goes directly into bins out in the field, comes back to the processing plant. It's triple washed, which it is, 3 stages of washing in chlorinated water, and off it goes. And there's a lot of opportunity out here. This is exposed, it's not fenced, it's not netted. So if you wonder how we get salmonellosis outbreaks from bagged lettuce or listeria is found in the soil, this is it. So we have to ask ourselves, how do we really manage food safety risks? Well, you have to make the right food choices at the end of the day. So is there anything I can do to fix listeria on this product? Not really. We've seen that it actually can move into the cells or between the cells of the plant, which of course if you toss some chlorinated water on that, if you already have it in tissue, it doesn't matter, right? So not to be fear-mongering, but understand if you're an immunocompromised population, make choices around cooked foods. That's a really easy way to prevent listeriosis. Another looking at harvesting of romaine lettuce, it's really like surgery out there. It's amazing the efforts that the produce industry goes to harvest these products. These products, if you look up on top, these are harvested, trimmed, and bagged right in the field. No process, really. It's really an impressive operation at the end of the day. I never know what's coming next. I'm always hold on to your shorts. But we still have this situation, right? We still know that we can have countrywide recalls. This one was from the listeriosis outbreak attributed to bagged lettuce that started in Canada, so we know that it actually crossed international lines, but it was a single supplier. You wonder why your lettuce goes away some days. Well, we've still found a foodborne pathogen in it. What is, this? This is my favorite. You know what this is?
Yeah.
You excited about it?
No.
What?
No,
What is this?
That's rumen reticulum.
That's not. I don't like that stuff. That's like the one part of the cow I don't eat. I don't like menudo.
Is that tongue?
It is tongue. Oh, man, beef tongue. So good. That is beef tongue. And we have some of the best tongue tacos in the world in this town. I've verified it. I've tried almost all of them. If there's a new Mexican restaurant, we're going after it usually. Try out the tongue taco specifically. So if we look at this situation, again, what's the highest risk food on it? The cilantro. That tongue has either been boiled for 3 hours or pressure cooked. I mean, it's autoclaved. It's good. I know, Kayla. I know we've had talks about this. I've sent you pictures of it. Smoked tongue is good. We got all the permutations of tongue. All right, what's wrong here? This may have come out of my fruit bowl where things go to die. Now we have mold growing here. And also on my on my onion there. Now, would I still eat this product? Absolutely. I'd cut the bad parts off. This is where I get into the difference between quality and safety. Now, does it mean that this peach is free of E. coli or salmonella? No. But I can see that it has some certain quality defects, but am I going to work around it? Probably. Yes, a spatchcock chicken. I mean, you just got to be able, it's fun to just say that word, right? Spatchcocked. Yeah. So you cut the backbone out of it. So you can flatten it out. You cut the backbone out with scissors because that's nice. And then you just go, and it just flattens out. You break. Isn't that terrible? I know. But then you can grill it. And it cooks extraordinarily well and very evenly. All right. We know that salmonella and Campylobacter are a huge issue here. This is my counter. This is my cutting board. Right? You can see it's probably creeping off. We got some issues. Got another little safety hazard here. Who puts their knife like that? it on its edge? Maybe not. It looks like it's standing on it. I would probably do something like that, but no. So I have a high probability that I have Salmonella and Campylobacter absolutely everywhere right now. So it's why I have a stainless steel island. That helps. So I do think about my kitchen a little bit as a food processing facility, but now that cleaning and sanitizing behind this situation, this is the one food that really kind of bothers me, actually. It gives me the heebie-jeebies. But if I'm going to take some sanitation action, it's definitely after I've handled chicken. So we know that there's a lot of ways that salmonellosis or salmonella happens and how it transmits to people. This is another one. You know, this idea of backyard chickens. There were 8 multi-state, I don't know how multi-state happens, but there were 8 multi-state outbreaks of salmonellosis from backyard chickens. So they crossed state lines somehow. Right? So this idea that just because you're raising them, they don't have any foodborne pathogens, that message hasn't quite made its way to that new, target production system. Right? My chickens don't have salmonella. I mean, who says that? But there are people that say that. It's like saying your chicken doesn't poop. Right? Your chicken doesn't poop? Well, that's good. And if it did, there are options. Right? I've actually found some diaper wears, which who wants to deal with that? I don't know, but I don't make this up. I mean, it's NPR, right? It's NPR. We don't argue with NPR. There's a lot of, so we can get salmonellosis this way, and then we can get salmonellosis this way. I'm sorry if the volume's on. This is the edited version. I don't know if I can actually find the, oh, there we go.
There are no words for this situation.
I said I had a stainless steel countertop. Yeah. That was a couple weeks ago on my counter. I do not know where the snake came from. But I was unpacking my bags. I had just come back from Wyoming. And when you turn around and you're like, there was a lot of this motion going on, a lot of, like I said, this is the edited version of this. So the other important piece here that a lot of people make fun of in food safety land is women's handbags. You look, mine's over here sitting on the floor, I think, well, up there now. But think about where those things go. Yeah. It's on the counter, and I might have had a snake in it. Compete with that. That's all I have to say. But reptiles, and as pets, known salmonella carriers, direct inoculation of my counter. It's not that I was handling my snake. I did get the snake out of my house. Somebody was like, what did you do? And I'm like, well, I didn't leave it. I wasn't excited. I might have had to have a few cocktails afterwards to take it down a notch. But yeah, I mean, you throw a mixing bowl on it, and then all right, stage 1, made it, captured it. And then you get the cookie sheet out. And you slide it, and then your snake falls out from under the bowl, so you got to regroup. And then I go out. It's dark, of course, because it's got to be 10 o'clock at night. And I throw the whole unit out into the woods. And then I'm like, I need my bowl. So you can't see the snakes. You're just like, don't step on the snake. Food safety, anyway. I just put my croquin bush up there because I'm really proud of it. There's over 100 of those cream puffs there. I was really mad by the time it was done, but luckily Barb helped me. I ran out by the end, and so I just put a bourbon topper on it. Thought that was a nice end. But this is a heavily handled food. I had no fingerprints left after I'm making this. So the risk here is that if I am a Staph aureus carrier and I gifted it to all of my friends for Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever we were doing, solstice, there it is. Enjoy. It's a weight loss program, folks. This one, another local treat. I mean, this sums it up. All right, organic grass-fed raw milk, not for human consumption. Any questions? Okay, good. It used to read pet milk or pet butter, like if you have raw butter, which is like raw milk concentrate. So Staph aureus, Salmonella, Listeria, E. coli, you name it, all concentrated into a spreadable pack for your dog. Anyway, this is what people think I do, and that's fine. I have my Beyonce safety glasses on because the college wants me to wear safety glasses, so I wear my shiny ones. But this is what we really do, right? Most of these pictures here are me cleaning retail grocery delis, right? sexy science. What you see on the bottom, which is probably the most interesting piece, is what's in a deli case when you don't clean it. Right? So deli meats have a high water content. The juice that comes off of hot dogs and things like that is called purge. It's a nice name, isn't it? And it collects in the bottom of those cases. You ever seen anybody clean a deli case? Yeah, I didn't think so. This is me. I know it's really hard to tell, but one of the mechanisms that we use to demonstrate transmission of how I can move junk from this deli case onto food is the use of glow germ. It's a fluorescent powder. It blows people's minds. You know, I can shake your hand, I can shake 12 people's hands and show how we can move an organism down the line. That works fine and all fine and well. We used it in Afghanistan when we trained there quite a bit. What we failed to factor into that space is that people didn't understand that it wasn't hazardous. And so people, when they saw themselves glowing, went running down the hall because they thought we'd basically irradiated them. So we had a learning curve there as we thought about it. But there's some other looks at some deli cases. What we know based on risk assessment, why we care about deli is that we put a lot of energy into making food safe at manufacturing. And it has been that way for quite some time. But the things that can be done at manufacturing can be undone, certainly by a consumer. And we know that they can be undone in retail, like retail grocery as well. So that's why my group focuses on this environment in the post-manufacturing space. We also know if you're going to have this situation under your case, these are the fans that move the air around to keep it cold. You ever wonder why your products from the deli don't last very long? Well, it's probably because this is a microbial mat, and it's circulating that right onto your food. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a safety hazard, but if you're getting spoilage faster, you're having a cross-contamination event, whether you like it or not. So nasty drains, ripped up scales. This is what they call, so classy, a slop sink. So this is where all of the cleaning utensils go. You know, this doesn't look like a cleaning utensil, like you're going to have a clean cleaning utensil, right? And what we find, that's classic. No matter what grocery store we go into across the country, if you can't manage your cleaning tools, you're not going to be managing your food safety risks in the entire environment. Getting too far away. So I sit around and I chase problems in grocery stores, most of them in, a lot of them in affluent areas where we still throw a bunch of our food away. The flip side of some of the work that we do, and Paul Ebner's here, and Amanda Deering, Kevin McNamara is in Afghanistan, where we're trying to work on some of the other challenges. So not a grocery store here local to us. And a part of that is really digging into the food safety aspect of food security. It wasn't really built, in my opinion, it wasn't clearly built into the definition of food security, because if you have nutritious food, you have enough of it and it gets to its population. If it's not safe, it still kills you. What does it matter? We argue that food safety then is really almost like a fourth pillar of what food security really means. And so Afghanistan, 40, probably need to update that number at this point. It's been at war for a long time, and I like to call this slide the carbon cycle. So the first time I went to Afghanistan in 2012, there was 1.5 feet of snow. So that was rather amazing. It shut down the city, it shut down the restaurant. So and our cook at the guest house actually didn't come in, which everybody else said that was a blessing. I wasn't really in a position that I was going to starve or anything, but we did order pizza, right? And you're like, man, it doesn't matter where you go in the world, you can still order pizza. Yeah, well, the pizza came in a used box, and it wasn't like a fully aligned pizza. It wasn't like a perfect circle. It was kind of more of an offset circle, because it's kind of hodgepodge of pizzas together, which is fine. That's interesting. That's how you get variety. That's instead of dividing the pizza, like, you put pepperoni on your side and onions on mine. They're like, here's half a pepperoni and here's half an onion. You don't know how long or where they came from. That's okay. So you throw away this box, and then we were driving by. These are sheep right in the city of Kabul, and they were actually eating the pizza boxes. And so why I call this the carbon cycle, there was lamb or mutton on the pizza, and then we throw the pizza out, and the sheep recycle that for us. So some other challenging photos coming up. When we talk about food safety in this country, we aren't seeing a lot of poultry processing happening in this way, or beef slaughter in this way, where we're on the ground. We know where the pathogens are in cattle. They're on the hide. They're in the GI tract. Well, this is, of course, not one of the best practices that we could be doing to prevent that contamination or cross-contamination to people. So why we work on basic hygiene is to introduce some of the basic learnings that we've gathered over time, not as in we as in me, but certainly, you know, as a culture, food hygiene and basic hygiene for people we know has extended our lives, our life expectancy. So translating that piece around the world is really kind of an important, has important ramifications. We also are trying to build have been trying to build laboratory capacity in Afghanistan as well. If you don't know what your food safety risks are, it's hard to address them. And having people with basic skills, not necessarily testing for listeria. Nobody cares about listeria. We have 1,600 cases in this country. That's not a priority for most of the world. That's a developed world problem at the end of the day. But we are concerned about the salmonellas, the viruses. Those are the huge burdens of disease in countries that are trying to develop. So it's my best selfie ever, I thought. It's pretty good. Pretty good. I don't do that very often because it weirds me out, but I was like, oh, that one's pretty good. But also, you know, just doing some basic things that we do here in the lab, translating those skills to the Ministry of Agriculture, Irrigation and Livestock, and the Ministry of Public Health in Afghanistan. So an iPhone shot of yeast through a microscope, another big, you know, photographic win for me. I was pretty excited about that one. We do try to work with women, and that is truly a pleasure and a lot of fun to have that cultural exchange of how women live and how we can compare notes on our lives. Is really a fascinating opportunity. Now, talk about safe and unsafe. One thing that I have taken away from Afghan cuisine, which is amazing, is pressure cooked, then deep fried lamb shank. Oh my gosh. I mean, you're taking this rough, you know, it's like chewing on cardboard, well, not cardboard, I don't know, a floor mat, you know, some type of really chewy meat, a really low quality cut at the end of the day. You can turn it into butter if you pressure cook it. And that is definitely one major takeaway that I've learned from Afghan cuisine. So what we have here, this has been pressure cooked, and it is being deep fried right here on the side of the pool. I couldn't get in the pool, it's Afghanistan, you know. But one thing that's not safe is this guy up here riding a motorcycle down the street. Come here. Oh, I can't actually see my cursor, which is kind of fun. Again. Why not, right? You can see anything, I think, in Afghanistan. So he inspired me to buy a motorcycle. I wanted to be just as unsafe. I figured if we got the pressure cooked lamb shank out of the way, I may as well get a motorcycle. So this is my new thrill for 2017. Thanks, Paul Ebner, for your inspiration. So in China, you know, the food safety challenges they remain all over the world. Doesn't matter where we go. This is looking at mandarin oranges. Talk about an interesting process for producing those little things. You know, when you see a can or cold pack of mandarin oranges, they're perfectly orange, right? There's no white speck, there's no membrane on them. Well, that's chemically dissolved away. Didn't know that until I was in this processing plant in China. And if there's that little, you know, where all the membrane comes together at the center of the slice, somebody handpicks that off for you, just in case, because you have this aesthetics thing where you don't want to see any white on this mandarin orange slice. That's fine. I mean, look at me. I'm gowned up for surgery, right? So that's exciting. This is pre-processed, so these haven't been heat treated yet. And they still have the membranes on them, so it's before that's actually happened. But again, everybody's surgeried up. I'm not too worried about no gloves at this point, but it was the bathrooms that dropped me to my knees. I had to put my headscarf, I don't know why I had a scarf with me, but I did. You can't see it here. Wrap it around my face because I was going to puke going in the bathrooms. So we put all these great, you know, garbed up safety precautions in mind, but if you can't go into the bathroom, you're just going to cross-contaminate when you walk out. So these are co-packing for an American company, by the way. Coming to you. So is it safe? Yeah, it's pretty safe. It's really safe. I mean, you know, everybody asks me, oh, I don't want to go to dinner with you. Oh, it's fun. We're going to talk about all kinds of things like diarrhea and washing your hands, the importance of it. So is it safe? Absolutely. It's the safest food supply in the world. And we still get confused about the differences between what we think is bad and what really is bad. But we can't usually see those hazards. So teasing them apart does remain definitely a challenge. We throw away about 110 kilograms per person in the U.S. each year, so I have some opportunities to improve. Certainly, it's always in those short shelf life products like produce, right? Some of our nutrition, or what we view as the more nutritious products, have short shelf lives, and that creates obviously a lot of challenges when it comes to getting to them, to all the populations that need them. So this comes back to the plate at Westwood. You can see I ate the corn. It was room temperature, but I like corn. I really like corn. I do. It's just no outrun. I love corn. And took the risk. I did leave the weird chutney. I decided that was maybe too much. It was kind of a cilantro-based chutney. But the corn was cooked at least once. The chutney, I'm not sure. I'll take any questions you have, which I know you have 1,000 at this juncture.
And any questions for our Kohls lecture? Luckily, we only have 3 minutes. I'm not going to be able to eat.
And you already had snacks?
So, yes. So.
He was talking to you. Leave your mic on.
I have it on. I turned it back on. You can't see me. Yes.
My question really has to do. Would you hit the button? Know that. My question is related to actually that shot of the vegetables out in California, Arizona, where they're getting all those mixed greens. It used to be so many of the contaminations were really animal-based, and now you much more frequently hear about contamination that's based on plant products. Why do you think that switch occurred?
Yeah.
Or did it really occur? You can tell me I'm full of nonsense.
So this kind of gets at if we take it back a step, it gets back to the question of, do we have more foodborne illness, or do we have a change in the product risk in the U.S.? Yes and no. I think the focus has been on so meat and animal products. Like historically, if we look at how the food safety systems developed, they were focused on those. We know those products can be hazardous. That's where the energy has started. And I think as those larger systems have controlled the risk, we start to, and we don't see big changes in disease, we don't see these systematic drops, we start to ask questions of other systems. And that's really where a lot of as our detection platforms have improved, our sensitivity, specificity, and epidemiology combined together help us figure out where these sources are. We do start to look at other foods like produce. And is it animal-based? Yes, to a point, but think about, you also cut this lettuce and then you aggregate it in a plant. If their sanitation is poor, you might have had a product that was somewhat safe, but if you aggregate it, don't have sanitation, then you can cross-contaminate acres instead of just what might have been a localized small event. So our processes, our detection, we're always chasing the next thing, I guess, in a way. Ice cream. We don't think of ice cream as an unsafe product, but nobody was really focusing on what the ramifications like Bluebell would have. Nobody tested. If they would have tested their product once, one of their finished products, they would have found they had a problem. 99.7% or so of their product was positive for listeria when the FDA did that recall. Wasn't trivial numbers, so it wasn't a sporadic event. But we just haven't looked.
Oh, Haley, I want to compliment you. You're engaging and informative, and I can see why you're an excellent teacher. But my comment has to do with, we're always talking about vegetables and raw lettuce and how terrible it is and don't eat it. And we're also talking about health and risk analysis, right? And I'd like you to comment on what about the aspect of eating a healthy diet that includes fruits and vegetables, and you weigh that out with the so-called minor probability of getting sick by eating these.
Sure, and again, coming back to the idea of just the U.S.
Sorry, I had to protect horticulture.
Yeah, no, absolutely, no, but absolutely the U.S. food supply in general is extraordinarily safe. And if we look at the consumer base in this room, there's very few, if any of us, that are truly immunocompromised. And are we going to have any type of issue consuming those products on a regular basis? Absolutely not. It's when you are in the fringe, like in the tail distributions of age or immunocompetency. That's what we have to worry about diet choices. Like if you're very young, or if you're elderly, which the CDC or the government defines as 65 and older, you've entered the immunocompromised state of your life. And so you have, if you want to manage your risk, then you start to make choices around, okay, I want to eat a diet that's heavy in fruits and vegetables. Okay, that's completely doable. You just need to think about those where you can better manage your risk. Cooking foods, I mean, you're not going to cook your iceberg, but maybe you have to find an alternative to leafy greens where you can still find that nutrients, that fiber content, but simultaneously reducing your risk.
So you said, which is news to me, that you're now finding that some of these pathogens can move into the cell. So it's not surface contamination. So washing is not going to help us at all. I know where I'm going. So I always thought, no matter how bad it is, I can always wash it off, right?
Yeah.
Although I will admit I don't wash anything. So
I don't either. I don't either, Linda.
But I'm just thinking for those people that are obsessed with this and would ask me about it, because I go into food plants and do the insect part. So obviously washing is just a waste of probably, you're going to take something off, but if it's already in the cell, how many other things are moving intercellular that we're just kind of screwed?
Well, we still should wash our fruits and vegetables. This is being recorded. No. No, there's a dilution effect. Water is still the best way to remove pathogens. And, when we, this is Amanda Deering and I's joint study, and it's been demonstrated in other food products that, if you inoculate the flower of a tomato, it can develop with E. coli. You can develop a tomato with E. coli on the inside. But these are our laboratory events, right? So we're inoculating at high levels just to demonstrate potential. Do we think it happens every day? No. So still washing the outside off. Get rid of your physical hazards, right? Rocks and sand, right? Keep your teeth. But it still will have a dilution effect of the organisms on the outside. So I don't wash mine all the time. If they're dirty, I do. Like my chard, it just doesn't feel good if it's gritty.
Dinner at Haley's after this. And
Excited.
Let's give Haley a hand again. Thank you so much. Want to thank all the presenters and the people that participated throughout the day. So thank you so very much for being part of the celebration of teaching excellence. To my our esteemed colleague, Dr. Dennis Buckmaster, Penny Kelly, who led the way and put this together. We appreciate your dedication and your effort and leadership in these efforts. Thank you all, and until next year.